And we are back. Hello, everyone. Thank you and welcome. Thank you for joining us and welcome back to Crossroads of Cognizance. We are back with you for our live broadcast, and it appears that my sound is up. Okay, we fixed that. I'm one of your hosts, Dahlia Rose, and with me today we have the lovely Miss Katrina Rasbold. So, man, we are here every week to talk about what has gone on with us, what's gone on with our clients in each of our respective shops, and to see what's going on with you all and what's happening in your world, and to share back and forth as communities do. So, the universe is a funny thing, right, Katrina?
Hilarious.
Sometimes we don't laugh until later. However, what I'm finding interesting in this moment is that we had very similar themes. I don't tend to do the comparison thing with scales and everything, but somehow synchronicity has played itself into our hands again. And so while we are talking, if you guys had similar events, I won't be surprised. Let's hear it. Throw them up there in the comments section. Just some housekeeping rules. Everybody play nice, be nice. And we're both working in remote locations today, so we'll do what we can with our Wi-Fi. Just be patient, and we'll keep this boat moving. So, Katrina, do you want to begin?
Sure. I'm going to see if I can do this because I haven't done this before, and I want to see if it works. Hold on. It's coming. All right. Maybe not. Okay. I was going to see if maybe I could upload a picture of the carnage that is now my home.
Yeah.
And it's not really loving me doing that for the shared screen. I was hoping that it would just be, hey, you can point it at this picture and we can show you this picture, and it's not letting me do that. And that's okay. I'm not in a learning space right now. But the reason we weren't here last week was that Monday, so today has been 2 weeks since my home completely burned to the ground, and it is absolutely leveled. We got out with what would fit in our car. In fact, 2 vehicles, one of them very small, a little Celica. And we had not planned this well because it wasn't supposed to come our direction, and very, very suddenly it was. And so my husband had loaded up all of his, oh, look, that's my house. Look, yeah, there it is. That's actually my sheds. Oh. That's okay. I can see how you'd be confused. It all looks
wait a minute. I think, not that I'm eager to get it, but
there it is. I painted that chimney. I painted every brick of that chimney multiple times. Yep, that's my house. Thank you. And so there's nothing salvageable, but because we thought we were going to be able to make multiple trips, my husband had his giant paddle board and his rock climbing gear and all of that in the car because we thought we were coming back. And very suddenly he said, we have to leave right now. And I said, we don't even have an evacuation order yet. We've got a warning. We don't have an order. He said, oh no, we have to leave now. And there was this wall of orange just coming right down the road at us. Oh. And so it was a matter of just get in the car and go. So important things like my new Kindle that I'd used twice with my passport laying on top of it got left on the desk. Different important memorabilia from our relationship. We've been married for 25 years. And so some really emotional things there. And from our 6 kids and clothes. I mean, we just literally grabbed whatever clothes were in the washer and dryer at that moment. And that was what we had to wear. Everything else, nothing else made it. So anyway, that being the case, we have been very blessed that a number of people have stepped forward and said, how can I help? What can I do? And I have kind of a natural response to that, which is to say, oh, no, we don't need anything. We can manage it. We're doing okay. We're well positioned.
Virgo things.
Yeah, please don't worry about this. We got this, because I don't want people to carry my emotional load, my labor. And I'm okay with people holding space for me,
Right.
especially certain people that I'm really close to, like yourself. I'm okay with people, just offering to help. It's just weird to me to accept help from other people because I'm the mom.
Yeah.
Don't go on the receive very often. People are kind to me. A lot of the things I lost very sadly were gifts from coven members and gifts from other elders in the community, gifts from my children, gifts from students. And that was the most devastating, I think, were the things that were expressions of love from other people. And so I'm blessed with people giving me things, but it's weird for me to be in a position where people are saying, what do you need? What can I do to keep you alive? And I just don't do well with it. And I remembered something that was said to me many years ago. A friend of mine had just had her stepson murdered. And a woman in our community was really pushing the idea of giving her a casserole. And she said, you know what? I really don't want the casserole. I can't eat now anyway. I'm just a wreck. And the woman said, just take it because maybe you'll need it later. And my friend was just resisting. And finally, the woman said, have you ever stopped to consider that maybe this is my ministry? And that really sat with me hard, that when we are rejecting the goodness and the kindness of others and the interests other people have in their ministry, interrupting how their love language and how they share and how they care. And people are so rejected and devastated when you say there isn't anything that you can do. You think they're going to be relieved. Oh, gosh, you're good. Thank goodness. But they want to be proactive. They want to do something. And often we rob them of that when we are not humbled to accept anything they're giving.
Right.
You don't like tuna casserole. You're bringing me a tuna casserole. Thank you. Thank you so much. It's just really about accepting the gift that's been given. So that's my speech.
Okay. Well, along the similar vein, so I can't speak to loss per se in my circumstance. However, this last week was my birthday weekend. I had plans to stay on a sailboat with my love, and it turned into a bit of a debacle with an Airbnb. So we get on there and accommodations are a little shoddy, but I mean, this was glamping for me. So, cause I wasn't going to do it in the woods. And so we get on there and we're making do. Some unexpected things started occurring, like how do we get back and forth from the boat, things like that. And so where things kind of shifted was the idea that this may be a bit of an illegal situation. So, dock masters have their permits and their parameters, and then the people in the water with their boats have their permits and their parameters. And, with signing on to Airbnb, a lot of assumptions can be made about, okay, well, if it was a problem, it wouldn't be up. So that was an assumption I made, and this trip was my idea. And so going out there thinking everything's good, within 24 hours, it quickly turned into a situation where we didn't know if this was legal or not for us to be on this boat or for them to even be renting it out to us. And a phone call was made, and then the dock master was like, hey, I need your name and number because I don't think this is legal. And then they sent somebody out, and I'm just like,
wow, happy birthday, huh?
Right. So, long story short, the person that came up to the boat was actually very nice and was like, hey, sorry to ruin your weekend, but this guy is going to get in trouble, etc. And I was just thinking, like, we need to get out of there because the climate that we're in, like, I don't know what's going to come up to the boat next. Are we going to get pulled off? Is the boat going to get towed? Did this guy just lose his way of being or money that he was making because, we're on here? And so anyway, my humbling moment was, the the partner that I have is very giving and very, like, he's a fixer. I think we talked about Eric being a fixer.
Oh yeah, he's a fixer.
And so we're there, and basically I'm in panic mode, and he's like, well, no, we're gonna fix it. He starts making phone calls, let's get into this hotel, or do this or do that. And I'm just like, hold on. Even in that moment, I was just like, I needed some sense of like, hey, you know what? I made this mess. Let me clean it up. And I was like, please wait, and we'll figure it out. But really, I meant I'll figure it out, and all of these things. And then we get to we get up all our stuff, we get to the shore, and our dynamic, I think he's really helped me with compassion for myself and for others, oddly enough, even as a like an energy worker. And so there was a lot of compassion needed in that moment, and he was right to the rescue. And then a lot of synchronicity started happening with our ability to get into a new space, and blah blah blah. And anyway, this sounds like inconvenient, right? And assuredly it was only inconvenient. It could have been so much worse. And so the allowing the help piece was coming through, because I was just like, nope, I made my mess. I need to fix it. I need to do all the things. And he was like, but there's this solution here, and it's right here, and it's very simple, and it's very easy. And he rescued the entire weekend. And so for all of that, I was ready to just let myself suffer. I was like, you know what? I did it. I made my bed, let me sleep in it. And again, like you were saying, to your point, not wanting the emotional burden to be on anyone else. I pulled him out here with me, and so now I have to fix it. And so it was, when you talk about accepting help from others, it is a different animal when you are operating in that capacity, I would say 360 days out of the year.
You're so right. You're absolutely right. And the level of accountability that you display with that situation is very relatable to me, because I think so often now we're seeing people who refuse to be accountable for the situations they create.
Right.
And I think we really have to find that middle ground where we're accountable and yet we're willing to accept help for resolution.
Absolutely. That's the only way forward. And, why operate in the self-sabotaging space, to create like self-fulfilled prophecies. Oh, I knew they were this way, or I didn't deserve, or whatever the case is.
Yeah,
it's even more suffering. So.
Yeah. And I love your point about compassion, because that's one thing that Eric and I have both been good about and bad about since the tragedy happened, which is, we're both grieving. We raised our children there. We lived there for 17 years. We had so many memories there. And we tend to crumble at different times. So far, we haven't both crumbled at the same time. And so there's been a lot of space holding. There's been a lot of people holding, of just hanging on, just keep me safe here for a moment.
Yeah.
And the compassion that he has showed is really unparalleled. He's a kind person, but he's not an overly compassionate person, I don't think, at least where I'm concerned. One of the first things he said to me in our relationship, I didn't find particularly flattering at the time. And that was, Katrina, you're the most capable woman I know. And I felt so utilitarian, as if, it's not, oh, you're beautiful, oh, you stir my heart. You're just really capable, you're sturdy. And
oh, I can't break you easily.
In our 25 years that we've been together, he tends to get really uncomfortable when I'm compromised. If I'm sick, or if I have an injury and it slows me down, my Meniere's that makes the vertigo really bad, he gets profoundly uncomfortable if I'm not at 100%. And so him making space for my grieving at this time has really been monumental. I don't know how I could have managed if he hadn't done that.
Well, and the piece about not going through the grief at the same time seems I don't, it doesn't seem intentional, but maybe very important.
I
Just
hope so.
as you
And
talk
I'm
about
really
safety.
hoping we don't get off track with that. That could be tragic.
Okay, so I've got Thursday, and
Yeah,
you can grieve on
exactly. I can
Friday.
work you in on Friday. I can work your grief in on Friday. I even said to him, and this was purely observational and not necessarily proactive. I said to him, if, it's been 25 years, if you did want to break up, this would be the ideal time to do it. We're
No.
both starting, we're both recreating ourselves. We lost everything having to do with our children, except our children.
Right.
We lost a lot of, what supported our time together materially as a couple. So if you wanted to split up and just cut our losses and they see ya, I'll send you a postcard, this would be the moment. And he just looked at me like I was insane. He's like, no.
So there goes practical Virgo, like, hey, listen, you know what? The timing's right.
Right. If you've been thinking along these lines. And then another thing that I believe you probably implemented on this as well in your situation is I keep having people contact me and anytime you're grieving, people do not know what to say.
Right.
And so it feels like that there's a lot of things that are said that are triggering when people are trying to help. And one of the things that comes up a lot is, well, this always happens for a reason. It happens for a reason. It's going to be better than ever. And I'm thinking, realistically, what evidence do you have of that?
Right.
Explain to me how that comes about, other than to attempt to make me feel some kind of way, or possibly to make that person feel some kind of way. And I'm sure that, as you were experiencing your situation, you were saying, okay, what lessons are here? What am I being shown? What am I being taught? Because we always believe that we're so important that if something bad happens to us, it must be a lesson. It must be something, really specific to us. It can't just be, that the boat blew up or that the guy was a crook or whatever it shook out to be.
Right.
It's got to be personal. It's about us.
And
for me, the entire town burned down, for the most part. So, but yet I'm saying it's about me.
Well, right. So I think, and I think we have you frozen here for a moment. So I'm sorry if I interrupted.
Yeah, no, go.
I was, I think with our background, right, we do kind of navigate towards that question. And then I think, especially in your circumstance, that it, again, to your point, it doesn't actually manage anything, to say, oh, well, whatever you could say about this happening for a reason, right? Like it literally fixes nothing. It doesn't give you something to work on. It doesn't say, unlock the gates that bring everything back. In my situation, I did dive into that, like, okay, well, what am I supposed to gain from this? And I actually thought of talking about it today. So I had like a
do
little
that.
list.
Go. Do it. Do it.
I was like, okay, do your research, trust others to help you. And then, the importance of putting work down and going somewhere else, giving your brain a break.
Yes.
Because I planned that trip and all of the hurried, not research done while I was working. So, had I actually stopped, we may have had different accommodations or circumstances. And again, it was just inconvenient. But you're right. The universe is so much bigger. I got a chance to watch a movie called Hector's Search for Happiness on, I think it's an Amazon movie, Amazon Prime or whatever it's called. I don't watch these things often, so I think it's an Amazon. But this psychotherapist or therapist of some kind goes out, and he is in and out of his home every day. Girlfriend is great, life is great, everything is on schedule, nothing's changing. And then one day, one of his psychic clients, which I was like, look at that, starts asking him about what makes him happy, because she can see that in his childhood, blah, blah, blah. And so she's psychoanalyzing him when he's supposed to be psychoanalyzing her. And anyway, it leads him to this question where he's like, I'm not helping my clients find happiness. And so anyway, the long and short of it is he goes to different countries, he has different circumstances, he runs into a drug lord, he ends up with an Asian prostitute, he like all these things. Meanwhile, girlfriend's back home like, this is what you've got to do. And it just sort of led me to this place of questioning that, and trying to find the lesson of joy or the lesson of happiness in everything, because it's very easy to find the frustration and the like, that's already there, that'll be there, right? And I think even within your situation, not to say that you had to find happiness or what have you, but you kind of silver lined it with the whole like, hey, you know what, Eric, we're starting over. Now's the time. I mean, it's a little like, it takes you back a minute for you to be like, wait a minute, what? But it is a silver lining, so to speak, right? Like,
Eric always says, you don't own your stuff owns you.
Yeah.
And so it would have been very hard to move off the mountain, which we had wanted to do for many years. But there was so much memory there. There was so much, we were so deeply seated in that house as our hearth home. We had had countless rituals there. Our labyrinth was there. Our sweat lodge was there. Our formal circle was there. And, we had had 20 years of rituals in that backyard.
Wow.
So the idea of leaving all that energy behind or dropping it so someone else could use the land just felt sacrilege. It felt like we were responsible for tending that land. And the second that it burned, I said, I'm not going back. I will never, ever go back up there. And Eric and the kids are dying to get back up there and pick the bones. They want so badly to go through the rubble and find anything that survived. And, if something survived, that's great. I'll be thrilled to have it.
Yeah.
Can't do that. I'm not in a space where I can emotionally sustain doing that. But one thing I wanted to ask you, based on what you were saying, I have always felt that this comes from a tremendous place of privilege. And I have never actually had that privilege. I hope that you have it sometime. Have you ever done the eat, pray, love thing? No, me either. Just take a year, take 2 years, go on walking.
What? Do you work for Google? What do you mean take a year?
Do what you need, and I just wondered if you had done that, or you knew anybody who had just, taken a year and gone to India or something like that.
Not a year. I need to eat, pray, love in a weekend.
Yeah. Eat fast, pray fast, love fast.
Right. Well, it was good. All right, it's Monday. Get back to work.
Yeah. By the way, you have a shit friend. I am so sorry that the limitation of my celebration of your birthday was me going, happy birthday, Dahlia, on Thursday night.
Listen, the fact that you even said it, I mean, you have been upright in a situation where I like in my attempt to feel into empathy for you in all of this, because I didn't want to make it about me, but I was like, I would be in the fetal position, and I am in complete awe and just amazed by, because you continued to work. I mean, like, our community needs to know that Katrina continued to serve other people through this tragedy and circumstance. I would have said, I'm sorry, I can't. I will.
Well, I did close my shop coming up. I don't know if I mentioned that to you or not. Starting this week, we're closed on Wednesdays, Thursdays. We're only going to be open on Friday, Saturday, Sunday, because we didn't have the bandwidth to do it. And so we tried. We were really willing to give it a shot, but we found ourselves fragmented when people would come in to talk to us about their problems and their situation. The energy was so divided that I didn't feel like we were giving them what they deserve. And so we decided to just pull back, rest, do the paperwork we need to do, and just do the weekends now.
But this is a great point, because I think that most of our our audience members operate with energy of some kind, right?
Probably.
And as energy workers, unlike maybe, corporate America, where it's, work until you're dead, or, whatever the case is, that kind of stretching can seep over into the metaphysical community, and there needs to be conversation around bandwidth and being fragmented. And if you cannot fully invest, it's one of the things that I love about you as a teacher, telling us as students, if you cannot fully support that person, you should not be. And fully support, meaning hold space, or have the compassion and what have you, or very simply the energy and bandwidth to do it. And so you tried, and when you couldn't find that anchor, you said, you know what, we'll do what we can, which is a far cry from what I've seen in our community. You see people withered and tattered, and they're just, oh, I am sacrificing for my work. And people are sort of, half-assing what they come to the table with, and then wonder why. Like, I had a lady, I don't know her, I'm not making fun of her. I'm laughing because it just the conversation. So I end up in an elevator, and this woman comes up to me, and she sees my bags full of stuff, and my magical bag is rainbow colored, right? And so she's like, oh, we strike up a conversation. She sees my bumper sticker says about something about Reiki, and she's like, oh, you practice Reiki? I was like, yeah, I've been doing it since 2015. Da, 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 da. And she's like, well, you need to be careful. And I was like, well, that conversation went in a weird direction, but I'm here for it. What's going on? And so she proceeds to tell me that, on her journey, she, got into Reiki, and her gifts and abilities opened up, and it was wonderful. And then all of a sudden, all these negative influences started coming in, and it took her 10 years to get out of it. Now, here's a couple things that you need to know about this conversation. I am talking to an older woman. So I don't know what Reiki was for her back then, right? I don't know who her teachers were. It was probably harder to come by back then when she was doing it. She also smokes enough for me to tell when you speak to her that she has been smoking for years. So when she starts talking about, and there's nothing wrong with cigarette smokers or otherwise, like, go do you, boo boo. But when she starts to talk to me about all these different influences coming in, and they're making her and pressing upon her and whispering this and whispering that, I'm like, okay, but what else were you doing? like if you were chain smoking, you talk like this now, then I have a couple questions. Was it them? Was it the cigarettes? What are you doing? Like,
yeah, it sounds like just some boundary issues there on a lot of levels,
right? So was she truly taking care of herself at the point that she was fragmented? Did she just go, no, this is my service, this is my gift to the world, and I'm essentially a slave to it? Or were there other things happening? And so I'm really like moved that you guys are actually taking this time and this journey, because not only is it like the honorable thing, right? Because you've talked about how you will serve others and how you want to do it 100%, but it gives permission for other people in the community to say, wow, you guys have a whole store to take care of. You have a whole community of people to take care of. And that unless you take care of yourselves, you can't support them in the best way possible.
That's Eric.
Hi, Eric.
Oh, God, I'm sorry. Oh, hi.
Say hi.
Hey. Hey, Jen, say hi to Dahlia. I got Jen on the phone.
Hi, Jen.
Dahlia says hi.
So, you're coming at this from a place of wholeness, and I think it's important to speak to that, because that's how things get in. You talked about being fragmented, and I think it's Rumi talks about that's where the light gets in. Well, if you're not taking care of yourself, shitty things get into.
Right, and then you start chain smoking, and it's all over.
Right.
One of the things Eric and I have frequently seen that is really dismaying to us, and I know our I don't want to say target audience, but the people that we're with a lot is different than the type of you're with a lot. Most of our are coming around or that we're in festival with are pagans. And the pagan community is really invested in martyrdom, and they don't like to talk about that, about how there are people that what they offer is their exhaustion. That's what they have to give is I'm going to be here until I fall down. And I'm just, they kind of define themselves. I'm just not there. I'm just not there for like that for really much of anybody.
Right.
I don't know that I could do that for Eric. I don't know that I could do that for my kids. I mean, I have worked to exhaustion for any of them, but as a chronic investment, I don't think that I would do that.
Right.
And, it just really is that, like you said, what can you give if you're defeated to the point that there's nothing left to give? It doesn't look attractive. It doesn't. Oh, it says my internet connection's unstable, by the way. I just got a flash up. So anyway, it doesn't look like something anyone wants to do. If anything, it inspires guilt in the people that do need to ask you for something.
Right.
And another thing it does is it wakes up the people who are absolutely willing to work you to death.
Yeah.
And not think twice about it. So I think that not only does it engender compassion, but like you were saying, gives other people permission to have compassion for themselves.
Absolutely. And to your point, I was just having that conversation about energy earlier. Energy is amplified. So if you are putting in exhaustion, I'm so glad you said you will pull people that feed on that. You're willing to work yourself to death for me. It must mean, that's because that's the only way you'll love me. And it's like, whoa, wait a minute.
Mm-hmm.
There are other forms of sacrifice and giving. And I want to highlight the piece of this being chronic. If you find yourself in a sacrificial place because of, what you need to do for an extended period of time, then do what you have to do to serve. But let that recovery be something that you pursue afterward. I mean, I talk to my clients, I'm sure as you do, have a lot of giver clients. And I'm like, listen, if you can't do what you do for others, and this may be a little extreme because I can be that way, right? It could be a little extra. But if you can't do what you are doing for others 3 times for yourself, don't do it. And I'm usually talking to my overgivers that are on my table because they worked themselves literally to death, like complete Tenali, soul loss.
Yeah.
Things are happening. And I'm like, okay, you know what? You're on giving probation for the next 3 months. And if you cannot do it, don't do it for anybody else. And I get these wild looks. But after a week of doing that, no becomes the favorite food. Say again.
The ones that can't do what you're describing, if they can't take a break from giving, if they have to give, if they just, are completely incapable of stopping that, that's an addiction. Yeah. That's a problem. They are addicted to the energy of being needed. Yep. They're addicted to the energy of gratitude. And we have to have other energies that sustain us. Anytime our energy derives from one source, we're in trouble.
Yeah.
Something that I really wanted to speak to that came into my head as you were talking is I have people all the time saying, why do you get so tired when you do energy work? You're supposed to be channeling divine energy. And when you do Reiki, when you do the types of healing that you and I do, you are channeling divine energy. That's what you do. However, this is a human body. Yep. And it can only sustain so much energy moving through it. It's not that we're using our own energy and depleting, because I'll have all these people look down their nose and say, you must be using your energy and that's why you're so tired. No, it's because when you channel energy into 6 healings in a day, you're going to get exhausted.
Yep, you are very much a part of the process. Very much. I have my original Reiki master had MS, and whenever she would have a heavy load of healings, when Reiki comes through you, they say it heals you and that person. But your human body isn't used to pushing energy through. And I'm sure you can speak to this, like the energy just gets stronger. And so when you're dealing with a different level of energy, then you're wiped out until you're adjusted to that. And so she would have these instances where she'd do, 12 healings in a week and be out for 2. And we could have conversations about the implications of like autoimmune conditions and things like that, but you cannot negate the fact that you have a human vessel.
Right.
This is the case for healers, psychics, mediums. I mean, they say that for us, we don't live as long because of the wear and tear. Most mediums don't have a gallbladder because of the wear and tear. I mean, there are
Mhm.
things that start to shut down, and you'll see consistency with that, or the development of an autoimmune condition
Mhm.
because of overgiving or pulling things through that your body's not used to, and things like that. And we aren't here to avoid things, but we definitely need, we're not here to avoid things, and I can stand on that and say you're not supposed to avoid taking care of yourself at the sacrifice of others. Are you really doing the work? And I want to stand up and not be a hypocrite here and say that I have gotten into that space of like, oh, wait a minute, people need me. I need to be available. And then had
Me
to
too.
reset my
Mhm.
boundaries, and, or thank God for having people that love you that go, please stop doing that. Like you're killing yourself, basically.
Mine was Christian from our class last week, Christian Mobus. He's one of our, I would say, sophomore students. And when he found out I was living at the shop, and what was happening was I was spending my day um, answering messages, because we got this plethora of messages of people. What can I do? How can I help? Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. And I didn't want even one of those to go unaddressed. I wanted everybody that reached out to know, I see you, I hear you. Thank you so much. We'll pull the trigger on this when we have a house. Thank you so much. And so I wasn't getting my work done during the day. So I was staying up until midnight, 1 o'clock to get the work done. And Christian said, so if you're living here at the shop, what measures are you taking to break up work from home? What does that look like? And I was like, oh, busted by a student. But he was very smart to say that, and that was part of what caused us to reevaluate the hours and how we're going to spend our time. Something else I was thinking about when we were talking about those martyr types, I heard this suggestion at one time. I gotta be honest, it may have been an Oprah thing, and I'm not an Oprah person. There's just things about her that feel skeevy to me.
Oh.
I'm sure she's wonderful, but she's not my go-to. But anyway, she said something, or someone on her show said something that just resonated so strongly with me. And it was, don't agree to do something you're going to later resent. And there are things that we know as we're agreeing to it, my spirit is not going to be happy that I'm doing this.
Right. And especially if it's something that you can easily reach for, right? Like, oh, you know what? I'm just going to answer this one question. And that, it's like, because it's one question before the other 10. And then, you answered it in the middle of the night. And then now they think they have access to you at 11. And yeah.
It's all got claws. It really does. And even with family, even with friends, just, I really want you to come over because my mother-in-law is coming into town. I need a buffer. I just need you to come be there. You don't have to do anything except be there and eat dinner and just be charming. That's all I need. And you're like, man, I just really wanted to sit in my jammies, watch a little Netflix, drink a little wine. I really didn't want to be somebody's, barricade against some kind of emotional mess, but you really love them. So you're like, yeah, I'll do it. And then later you're going to feel bad that you made that choice. And we just really have to understand that sometimes, even for our friends, even for our loved ones, it's just, I can't do that. That's not something I'm positioned to do.
Yeah.
And just say no.
No is such a, it's such an interesting thing. It's laced, I think, in our culture with so much guilt. And then when you finally make peace with no, you get into this extreme where everything is no. At least that's
You're a
what happened to
toddler all of a
me.
sudden. No,
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 no.
right. No, you'd like get
Yeah,
really
yeah.
artistic with
Just
it.
got the little
She's
shirt
like,
with
this,
no on your tits,
right.
no.
So, there's so much to be said for a balance with it, right? And feeling into it.
Sure.
And like you said, there's an internal nudge that will tell you, again, one of my favorite people starts talking about, with the embodiment project I talked about last time, she talks about feeling into your yeses and your nos. And I was talking to her as a fellow professional about a client that I wasn't sure if I should take on. And she started, slowly taking me through the process of feeling into my yes or into my no. And I was like, it feels like a no, but how do I do this? Like, and ultimately it amounted to a very positive ending to the situation. And it reminds me, like, not that this may be anything that you don't already know, but as you guys honor your no's and changing your hours, you get the reward, you get the balance of that, because there's all this clustered energy around,
Mm-hmm.
dishonoring the no and the needs.
Mm-hmm.
But when you finally open up to, and I'm sure our audience members can attest to this too, when you open up, it's like gifts just start to fall from the sky. You're like, man, where did this person come from? Or how did I make this proper connection? You would have missed it if you were busy or not honoring your no. So,
And I loved Oprah's response to I think I mentioned this on one of our Tea and Crohn's things, to the resentment thing. She said that when she doesn't want to do something, she tells the person she needs to pray about it. And then she comes back the next day and says, Jesus said no.
You did mention that.
I think I said that. And, I think that sometimes what has to happen is we have to be willing to be bold enough to say, I care too much about our relationship for me to say yes to this. And the more that we accommodate the needs of others under resentment, the more we contaminate that relationship.
Yeah.
When we're really trying to help, we're really just poisoning that relationship with resentment.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And there's another piece there, not just about, no and taking the time, but when you approach the situation, I mean, the resentment, you kind of hope that, like, no explains that I want to honor our relationship.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
But then it doesn't. And then there can be this thing where it's like, why do I have to explain this to you?
Right.
And that can feel like you're being judged, and then you get into other headspaces. So it's like a big, complicated ball of wax that I guess maybe the only answer is to speak from your heart and hope for the best. I mean, I don't know that there's actually a solution.
No. It's interesting how that guilt card gets so quickly played after no.
Yeah.
And I hate that. It comes from both sides, because you're already feeling sensitive over telling no to somebody you care about, but then they seem stunned. Like, really?
Yeah.
Well, what are you doing instead? What are you doing instead of what I want you to do?
Yeah. And then you're like, wait a minute, that's none of your business.
Right, right.
If it was Netflix and chilling, obviously that's all I can manage.
That's what I got.
And
yeah.
It's a wild journey with
one of the, I'm really equating what we're talking about here to the energy exchange of class. And for those of you who are not in our healing class, the way that I arrange that is that there is no set cost for the class. It is what your spirit feels you need to give to balance the scales for what the class is worth to you. And so what I say in the first class is $100 is going to be a different amount to me than it would be to Bill Gates.
Yeah.
I have a different feeling about $100 than he and his wife do. And maybe what I want people to do is to tune into what that sacrifice means to them. And I think it's the same thing energetically. If I say yes, and I go out to dinner with you on my night off, when that's the time that I planned to sit home and be quiet, then that's a gift I'm giving. That means more than if I went out to dinner with you, when I was already going out to dinner for something else.
Right.
So it's also got to do with the energy value, that the time and the energy is to that one person.
Absolutely. I worked with a healer where that was their whole principle as well. It was a heartfelt gift. And there were so many people. And when I say worked with, we supported that healer at my shop. For 1 day healings, and people were so uncomfortable. Well, what do they recommend? Like,
right.
what's the minimum? What did you give? What? And it was just this uncomfortable thing where I actually saw people sort of shy away from it or turn away from the idea.
And that's very true.
Of just like being overcome with, what do you mean I have to feel into what feels good to me? And then some people would sort of draw back on it and feel like, oh my gosh, they're trying to scam me, and it was like,
or it's
wait
a
a minute,
test.
where is this
it's a test,
right?
And they're going to talk shit about me. Yeah.
And
you're exactly right. Yeah.
The craziest thing is, like, these things would be given in like envelopes, right? So you never really actually know who gave what. But there was all this energy laced around feeling into what is a sacrifice.
And the thing with that is, there might be somebody who really needs a healing who can't afford the $150 price tag.
Right.
Whereas $150 is a lot to somebody that has $160. $150 isn't quite as much to somebody who has $15,000.
Right.
So, having someone really look at what can you do, it's huge emotional weight. People just freak out over that.
They certainly do. Yeah. And it's not just money. I mean, my appointment booking system is how much are you willing to put into this? There's questions to be answered. I need you to think about the answers that you're giving. Or else we're going to have a long, lengthy conversation about why, because you shouldn't enter into a healing contract with anybody without knowing what you want, or at least how you want to feel. And so sometimes it's not even about the money. I've had people shy away from my services because they're like, I don't want to answer all these questions. Okay, well,
it's too hard. Yeah. I have the same thing with spell work, where people will say, I want my ex to come back to me. I need you to burn a candle for that. And I say, well, what's your relationship with your ex like right now? Are you speaking? Are you not speaking? Is there any connection at all? How long has it been since you saw them? And, how much energy are we going to need to raise to make that happen? And if we do, how do we sustain that? And they don't want to hear about that. They're just like, just shut up and burn the candle.
Right, just fix it.
Yeah, just fix it. I'm in a crisis. I don't want to do any work for it. So you just fix it. And I'm not pulling all the load. It's their mess.
Well, and you literally can't, right? Like that's energy work. It's physics. It's the way we exist in this experience. You cannot make something out of nothing.
No.
And so the more you pour into, and this is for everybody, like the more you pour into your circumstance, the more you can pull out, the more you can. And like Katrina's saying, it's like fundraising. If you have to fundraise the energy, you need to know where the bar is.
Yes. Yeah. So, very good. And you have to know what the people who are giving it to you are doing.
Yeah.
Now, not that people don't know what I'm doing with the spell work, but I can't want it in the same way they want it.
Right.
I can pull energy. I can channel energy toward a goal. That objectivity is valuable in some cases, but I can't want that X to come back as much as they want that X to come back. Exactly. So they're always going to have the energy curb. And if they're not investing that, then I'm just out here, tilling their garden myself with them looking on from inside the house.
Oh, will they ever come?
And away from the past. And you know what they never want to address and never want to mention? Why did that relationship end to start with?
Yeah.
Why is this the 5th or 6th time? you've gotten back together with this person. They don't want to talk about any of that. They just want that person manipulated into coming back.
Yeah. And sometimes it's for like ridiculous things, right? Like, I just want to reject them the way they rejected me. And it's like, well, wait
Correct.
a minute, and to your point of like wanting for the client, I know in my work when I'm talking about, so the like generally what happens is the energy work flows through whatever comes through is what's needed, and I'm like, oh yes, here's your soul part, this was the age, this is the energy, and they're like, but who was I 15 lifetimes ago? And I'm like,
Why does that even matter?
they didn't lose their soul, you did. Like,
Yeah.
so, but to come to the session and say, you know what, I'm really just interested in who I was before so that I can pull and cultivate those gifts, that has value. It has value for you to know who you were or whatever information that you're wondering about, but come to it, fully, and don't, sort of hide behind, oh, well, is this being superficial or what have you? Just talk about it, because 9 times out of 10, there is a great reason that we can come to, or at the very least, it's, hey, you may have to work with somebody else for that thing because it's not my wheelhouse, or.
Yeah. One of the things I get to when we're talking about wasted energy is I've got a jar in front of me. I can clearly see this person has multiple curses that they've probably gathered over time, maybe intentionally or unintentionally. And they always want to know who sent it.
Yeah.
Who was the person who sent the curse? And I'm saying, I don't know, I don't do that kind of trace back work. My job, and I've always said this, is I'm like a surgeon who has a patient on the table. I'm worried about the fact that you've got a gut wound, and stitching you up and getting you all cleaned up. I'm not worried about who had the knife. That's not my job. My job is to get you cleaned up and then talk to you about protection. Like, don't walk in dark alleys at night, you silly thing.
I love that analogy that you give, because most people don't think, and I think I only have this reference, right, because of medical dramas, right, on television. And that is to say that usually the surgeon comes in as like, all right, what do you want me to fix? And then they do it.
Yeah.
And not necessarily fix, but repair, right? And so when you use that analogy, that's exactly what we are. And you've spoken to in the past the energy that's generated from that tracing. What exactly are you going to do about it? What if the thing that was incurred was something that may repeat for you again through a different person? What did chasing down the first one do for you? And that's what I'll usually ask my clients is like, well, what will this change for you? And
that's a good one.
They can never answer that question.
And a lot of them are going right back to cohabitate with their abuser again.
Right. Or if
that put them in that. Yeah. Another thing that I've been getting a lot of lately, and I don't know if you run into this or not, so this is another sub theme for the last few weeks that I've been hitting, is people are coming to me with physical disorders. I have cancer. I have, this leg that didn't heal right. I've got this, I've got that. And I need you to do a cleansing so that will get fixed. And what I'm having to tell them is, hey, I can have an effect on what you're experiencing if it has an energetic cause.
Right.
If it's caused by a curse or a crossing or a psychic attack, then we can work with that. But you might just be sick.
Yeah.
Sometimes you just have the flu. Sometimes you just broke your leg. And having the energy cleaned up is going to help you heal better, but it's not going to fix what happened. And removing a curse isn't going to take away what you lost or what you broke during the time you had the curse. If you had a curse and you lost your job, you're not necessarily going to get your job back.
Right.
If you lost your house, you're not going to get a house back. What you're going to do is have the obstacles cleared that were keeping you from success.
Right, exactly. I do get that on occasion. I had one person who said, I just want to make sure I'm not crazy. And I was like, okay, so I'm not a psychiatrist or a psychologist. And, that's not the way this works. And we had a very friendly conversation about the whole thing. Or, I want to heal my cancer. Well, that's beautiful. And I think that you should take traditional routes for that as well. But here's the other things that we can work on, maybe emotionally, to lighten the load or to speed up the healing process, like you were saying, because sometimes added pain, like let's say you're already in a painful situation, the rest is psychosomatic. You keep piling on. Not only do you have the amputated leg, but now you have the pain of everything you can't do because of it. Okay, now let's talk about those sorts of things to balance it out. But will it bring anything back? Not really, except maybe a little of your peace, which makes life more manageable. And that's really, I think you've seen, and I've seen a huge flux of like fix my life mentality rather than manage it and balance it out. And some sort of concept that we're going to transcend all this ugliness. And it's like, well, you didn't come here to not be in that experience. There is no getting rid of it. There is managing it. If you're looking at me or Katrina as like, oh, they must be meditating every day and they don't have these experiences. I'm sorry, but she just lost her house and everything inside of it. And the most beautiful thing that she's doing is managing and balancing.
Well, and to that end, we still, it's like the saying goes, I want to say it was Rumi, but I'm not sure. It was, it may have even been Confucius. That was, before enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. After enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. You still have to do the daily work. I still have to fill out an insurance claim. I still have things I have to do. I can't just be favored because I do energy work and presume everything's going to be okay. You still have to do the homework.
Right. This is the issue I have with the things I see about manifestation out there, but maybe a conversation for another time, because we have hit that moment.
Yes, we have.
So you all have been wonderful to participate with us. I want to give a big and huge loving thank you to Katrina, because again, the sacrifice of time, there's so much that you could be doing, are enduring, and you are here with us on a Monday night, just taking the time that you have to give us your love and share with us and the lessons learned. And we just love you so much.
Love you too. You're one of the greatest blessings in my life. I don't mean to this be some big mutual admiration society of two, but I just adore you. I'm so grateful for all the circumstances that brought you to my life from all the way across the world, all the way through the entire nation, just to get to you. That makes me so happy.
Well, we're both happy to have each other, and we're happy to have you guys as an audience.
Absolutely.
And, each week we'll be back at it to talk about more, and we look forward to your sharings. Thank you for participating in the comments section, all the love. And like I said last time, we'll put this in the fridge for now and have leftovers next Monday. See you guys next